Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Sexual anarchy.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation, welcome to the show, everybody. It's Friday, the end of the week, but you know, the news day has just begun. In fact, there's a lot of news that's going on, a lot of it, of course, centered on Ukraine. We're going to try to, we're definitely going to cover some of that, mainly the Republican reaction. It's an interesting split in the Republican Party versus, here you have Trump, obviously, in favor of Vladimir Putin, and of course, other Republicans. And then, of course, you have other Republicans that are not so much in favor. So that's an interesting, very interesting split that we have here that I am going to talk about. We also have some good news when it comes to the cops related to the George Floyd murder. We're going to talk about that. We have Biden's new Supreme Court pick. We're going to talk about that. And then the CBO admits something interesting about single payer. The CBO. So, that said, lots of stuff here. Let's do it. Let's start out with a little bit of pillow talk.
God gave me this platform. I already know I'm going to win. China did our vote. Biden and Harris would say, hey, we're here to protect the country, and resign. Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't.
Just forget about the evidence. This was attacked.
Mike Pillow, as you are well aware, has a very big disdain for the media. He does not like media. Well, and of course, unless, they're actually on his side. Unless, you are helping him sell crappy pillows and or spreading election disinformation, possibly doing both at once. He's not a fan of you. Doesn't like reporters. Now, if you are not one of those things, one of those reporters who is on his side, and you happen to run into Mike, say, for example, at CPAC, well, things can get very, very interesting like this.
What's the latest on your efforts to investigate the 2020
Who are
election?
you?
I'm with Mediaite. My name's Sarah.
Mediaite. Wow, you guys are rotten Mediaite, huh? Another rotten. Do you have my number?
I don't have your phone
You're the
number.
only bad journalist in the country that doesn't have my number. Wow, do you know who you work for, right?
Yeah.
Say
I
it
do.
again.
Mediaite.
Mediaite. Evil, evil, evil. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much.
Wow. Hey, all the bad journalists have my number. You know, do you have my number? Do you not have my number? Why is that important? Are you like making a proposition? I don't understand. I really don't understand what that was. That was like, maybe, I don't know, maybe his attempt at like, oh, I'm trying to get them journalists. Yeah, I'm going to get them. Yeah. Really? Like that's, I don't know. That's your like trolling attempt, which by the way, that entire thing, very, very bizarre. Very bizarre. I mean, seems like kind of a way, and even when he's, I think, attempting to troll a reporter, he still sounds like he's incredibly triggered. Like, not a very stable guy. Not a very stable genius. And by the way, she did ask a question that was legitimate, even if she was trying to get an unhinged response, which congratulations, she did. Hey, look, she's not the one that's trying to overturn the election. So it's a legitimate question, right? Hey, what's the latest on your efforts to overturn to investigate, the 2020 election? And immediately, trigger mode. Wow. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. What's wrong with asking? Honestly, if that's what you're trying to do, just own it. Just be like, oh yeah, I have tons of evidence. I got all the evidence right here, and you know what? I'm gonna lay it bare. I'm gonna lay it bare one of these days. Like maybe in 2027, maybe in 2030, maybe in 2145, I'll finally present all the actual evidence and go and overturn the election. And then we'll have the preserved, partly cybernetic head of Donald Trump that will rule in its rightful place as president of the United States. I don't know. The whole thing is just absolutely ridiculous. Encounters like this, Mike Pillow acting like a complete and utter child. But what do you expect from somebody who's got, just his addled brain? The guy knows everybody's making fun of him. He can't stand it. And when he tries to pull these, I don't know, again, little stunts, just makes himself look worse. Very sad. 2029 Cyber Symposium. Yes, it's when the truth comes out. But it will be the 14th Cyber Symposium because he's got to have, 12 more? Does he already have 2? 1 or 2? I don't know. He's had a lot. All right, let's go to Ted Cruz. Alrighty, just a bunch of fun little videos. This week, you've had CPAC, the gathering of crazy that has kicked off with the usual clowns, including Glenn Beck, Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump, and of course, the great value Wolverine, also known as Ted Cruz. Sorry to any Wolverine fans there. I know that was low. Now, Ted Cruz had attempted to dunk on White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki. And well, it didn't quite go as planned. Take a look.
Joe Rogan, Jen Psaki. Oh, come on, Jen Psaki doesn't get the Justin Trudeau treatment? All right. Peppermint Patty deserves some love.
Please clap. Please clap. Please boo in this case. Please boo. And so, okay, all right. Now, if you're wondering, of course, Jeb Energy, what do you mean? What do you mean, Jeb? Please clap. Where does that come from? Well, here's a reminder.
I won't trash talk. I won't be a divider-in-chief or an agitator-in-chief. I won't be out there blowharding, talking a big game without backing it up. I think the next president needs to be a lot quieter, but send a signal that we're prepared to act in the national security interests of this country, to get back in the business of creating a more peaceful world. Please clap.
Gee, I don't know why people didn't immediately boo Jen Psaki, Ted. I don't know. Maybe you're blowharding too much. I don't know. I don't know what it was that you had to remind them. No, total Jeb energy. Total Jeb energy. And by the way, what's with the name Peppermint Patty? Is that supposed to be bad? I don't think it's supposed to be bad. I like peppermint patties. They're delicious and refreshing. And by the way, the Peanuts character, I have no problem with that either. And so, if anything, calling her that actually might make her look a little bit better, a little bit more friendly. No, it's sort of a weirdo, old-timey, strange reference, right? And so, no wonder he had to basically beg people to boo. Now, Jen Psaki, of course, she was asked about this. Here's what she said, quote, "Don't tell him I like Peppermint Patty, so I'm not going to take it too offensively. Senator Cruz, I like Peppermint Patty. I'm a little tougher than that, but there you go." Wow. Ted, what a dunk. Oh my God, you've got red hair. Oh. And? What, are you going to start talking about how gingers don't have a soul? Really? No, this, again, so calling, her Peppermint Patty, I just said that it makes her seem a little bit more likable, right? Well, the opposite's true for Ted Cruz, because that actually makes him seem, well, more sad and unlikable. I mean, honestly, who in the Republican Party, be honest about it, does anybody even like Ted Cruz? I don't think Ted Cruz's daughter likes Ted Cruz. Nobody likes him. Nobody. I mean, really. He's not a tough guy, okay? I know how the Republican parties, they say they love tough people. I love tough guys. Oh, yes. Well, okay. Well, what about when Donald Trump came and Donkey Konged him in the head during the primaries? And he's been a little bitch ever since. Now, remember, and I say that not because I don't like Ted Cruz. Obviously, I don't like Ted Cruz. But, there's a reason. A lot of reasons. But here's the thing. When you're looking at it from a Republican perspective, you're supposed to like tough guys, right? Well, how tough is it when you let Donald Trump call your wife ugly and your dad a murderer? That's, again, literally what Donald Trump had done. Now Ted Cruz, he pretended. He's like, oh, yeah, well, I'm going to be really strong against Donald Trump. He's a bad guy. I'm going to stand up against him. Yeah, and then what happened? You give this big old fiery speech against Donald Trump, and then after that, you went upstairs at this convention, right? And the Mercers slammed the door in your face. Now, who are the Mercers? Well, they're gigantic bankers. They're donors to Ted Cruz, or they were. And then Ted Cruz, spoke out against Donald Trump. And they said, well, no, you're not going to do that. You know why? Because we're going to go fund Donald Trump now because you're a loser. We're going to fund Donald Trump. And you know what? If you want anything from us in the future, our money, well, then you're going to back Donald Trump too. And that's exactly what Ted Cruz did. He bowed down like a little dog. He said, you are our bitch. Get down on your knees. And he absolutely did for the donors. And so, hey, guess what? That's why later you saw Ted Cruz phone banking for Donald Trump. Now, I got to ask you, is that a tough guy to you? Somebody who bows down, kisses ass so incredibly easily? Is that an alpha male to you? No, you know what that sounds like?
Beta.
It's a beta male.
Beta male.
That's right. He's a weak, smarmy little politician. The thing that you hate about Washington, the thing that you hate about any politician, the guy who bends over for the biggest paycheck and is only at this point capable of embarrassing himself. This was a massive self-own. And if anything, I guess might make Jeb Bush feel a little bit better about his please clap, because this is quite sad. All right, let's move on. Let's go to some serious stuff now. Now, former President Donald Trump really likes Vladimir Putin. I think we've pretty much established that. And what's interesting about this, especially since now Russia has invaded the sovereign country of Ukraine, his comments and him sticking by Putin is exposing a schism in the Republican Party. So now, let me give you an example. Just hours before the Russian invasion into Ukraine, Trump had some pretty lovely praise for Putin. This actually comes from a recording from Mar-a-Lago here. Let's take a look.
And I said, well, he's sharp, he's smart. Oh, Trump said Putin's smart. I mean, he's taken over a country for $2 worth of sanctions. I'd say that's pretty smart. He's taking over a country, really a vast location, a great piece of land with a lot of people and just walking right in. This would have never happened, ever in a million years would have never happened. And I know him very well. I know him.
All right. Now there's more. He also said, this is on a radio interview for the Clay and Travis Buck Sexton show. This is on Tuesday. He said, this is genius. Putin declares a big portion of Ukraine. Putin declares it as independent. Oh, that's wonderful. So Putin is now saying it's independent, a large section of Ukraine. I said, how smart is that? And he's going to go in and be a peacekeeper. Now, of course, that's not what he did. His attacks and invasion went way beyond those two supposed independent republics into Ukraine proper. So, I mean, they came into the water in Odessa. They came through the border with Belarus. And they came through those eastern regions as well, Donetsk and Luhansk. And so, look, it's an invasion. You've got fire going on in Kiev, the capital. And so, look, this is very clear what it is. And yet Donald Trump's like, oh, no, this is very smart. This is very smart. No, what this is, it's regime change, in my opinion, at least. I think Vladimir Putin wants a puppet state on his border that, basically he wants to kick out Zelensky and install his own guy, somebody who is, loyal to him, loyal to Russia, and then use that as a buffer state between Russia and NATO countries. That's the way that I see it. And so, ironically, Putin has been using similar rhetoric to the United States when it came to Iraq. Sort of. And I say that because you remember, we're going to come there and we're going to be liberators. Well, Putin's saying the same thing. We're going to be liberators to the people of Ukraine, which obviously, from what it seems, Ukraine not exactly interested in that kind of liberation. And so now it's an invasion. And look, Putin showed his hand by attacking the entire country. And what's interesting here, the result of that, at least when it comes to Republican politics, is that here you have a nice crack that is developed between the Trump wing of the party and establishment Republicans. And so let's get to some examples here. I'm going to show you a video here. It's a little bit of a mashup of Tucker Carlson and another prominent Trump, well, maybe not prominent, but another Trump supporting Republican who said some very interesting things about Putin and Russia. Take a look.
Why do I hate Putin so much? Has Putin ever called me a racist? Has he threatened to get me fired for disagreeing with him? Has he shipped every middle-class job in my town to Russia? Did he manufacture a worldwide pandemic that wrecked my business and kept me indoors for 2 years? Is he teaching my children to embrace racial discrimination? Is he making fentanyl? Is he trying to snuff out Christianity? Does he eat dogs? These are fair questions, and the answer to all of them is no. Vladimir Putin didn't do any of that.
Russia is a Christian nationalist nation. They're actually Orthodox Christian and Russian Orthodox. So, I actually support Putin's right to protect his people and always put his people first, but also protect their Christian values. I identify more with with Putin's Christian values than I do with Joe Biden. Christian nationalist countries also are a threat to the global regime, like the Luciferian regime. It wants to mash everything together, but Putin takes care of his people. He looks out for his people. I watched as he deported, they literally walked them through the streets, the criminal illegals who were coming into their country. Yeah. They walked them out and they escorted them out and they said, get out. I can respect that.
That went from 0 to crazy quite fast. And so, wow. Yeah, oh no, she's against the Luciferian regime. The what? The what? Huh? So, okay, a complete and utter insanity. And so, but again, that's the Trump side. You've got Tucker Carlson. That other person, of course, was a former Wisconsin Republican candidate, Lauren Witzke. And so you also have people like Steve Bannon. And of course, a chunk of the Republican base that, again, is in favor of just Vladimir Putin. In fact, I remember seeing shirts from Republicans in, rallies saying I'd rather be a Russian than a Democrat. Now, it's kind of a weird thing to say. Look, there's nothing wrong with being Russian. That's totally fine. It's just that when you call yourself the pro-patriot, pro-America party, it's kind of odd to see you then now identifying with a foreign leader. Super weird, kind of strange. But look, from what I understand, is that the Republican Party, and I've shown this, they want a Christian nationalist, fundamentalist regime in the United States. They believe that that's what they have over in Russia. They want a strong man like Putin to, run the country. They don't believe in our democracy or a republic, and so they're not at all interested in that. And so they look at him and they're like, I really want to be, I want that over here. Yes, Putin, please come. That's what they're saying. So now, that's one side. Now you get the other side. And the other side is very interesting as well. Because then you've got some establishment figures, and I do get a little concerned about them because of course, of who they are. Well, one of them happens to be Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham's never met a war he didn't like. Now, he's not calling for a war yet, but I wouldn't be surprised. But nonetheless, here's what he said. And this is not only Lindsey Graham, but Ben Sasse, another Republican, in this video. Take a look.
I would make Putin the target of an effort to hold him accountable for the money he has stole from the Russian people. They say he may be worth up to $100 billion. Well, how did he get that money? He stole it from Russia. It means that he's a war criminal. It means that he went into Ukraine, a sovereign nation, and started killing people by force of arms. He invaded a sovereign nation against all legal norms. He's indiscriminately killing civilians. So he's a war criminal, but he's a crook and he's a thug, and we need to go after him personally.
Because the guy's got big-ass weapons, and he's evil. You could think he's a genius and evil, or you could think he's a madman and evil, but the reality is he has a lot of weapons and he has a lot of will, and so we have to care.
So now, let me just note the irony of Lindsey Graham calling anyone a war criminal. Really? Lindsey Graham? And I'm not saying that's not even true, what Lindsey Graham says. about Vladimir Putin. But I'm just saying, it's coming from a weird source. Very, very weird source. But okay, fair enough, right? So look, that's what they're saying so far. Now both have stressed, or at least one has stressed, that, hey, we don't want troops in Ukraine. Now, I agree, I don't want troops in it. I really don't want this to turn into World War III. That would be a disaster. I'm still holding out for some sort of solution here that ends the violence. And I'm forever an optimist, I guess. But all right, that said, I've got one more. Again, we covered two sides here. Now let's just go to one more crazy comment, and this actually comes from Tommy Tuberville. Here's what he said. The reason that Russians have invaded Ukraine, quote, it's because he can't feed his people. It's a communist country, so he can't feed his people. They need more farmland. I don't know where you got that. What? Oh, for one, no, Russia isn't actually communist. They've been communist for a very long time. And secondly, this isn't about farmland. And so, no, but again, that's just an example of the good, the bad, and the what the fuck. And it kind of tells you something. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing. Nobody knows what they're talking about. The only thing that they can actually agree on is somehow that this is exclusively Joe Biden's fault. That is the one thing all the Republicans definitely agree on. They're like, oh, well, look at that. See, this entire situation, it can be boiled down to Joe Biden. What? What? Okay. Now, look, here's the thing. That's not the case. This isn't Joe Biden's fault. There's a lot of contributing factors that led to this conflict, okay? And look, one of the most obvious things to point at is NATO's eastward expansion. I think that should have been unnecessary after the Cold War. I do think that, having NATO countries so close to Russia's border and expanding when, again, they didn't necessarily need to, yes, did have some provocation towards the Russians. Now, I was hoping that, okay, so we just say to Ukraine, let's not ask you to join NATO. I thought that would have been fine. Apparently, I was wrong there because it seemed like this was planned for quite some time. I mean, again, Putin literally does not think that this is a country. Like the country of Ukraine, he doesn't think actually is a real country and does not exist. And so does want it, and these are his own words. Ukraine doesn't exist, it's not a country, and it was a mistake for this to break off the Soviet Union, the USSR, etc. And so, okay, understand that this is just a culmination of 30 years, at least, of, unease and different factors that contributed to what's going on today. And so it's not the fault of just one singular American president. And by the way, if Donald Trump were in office, do you think this wouldn't have happened? Of course it would have happened. Donald Trump wouldn't have been able to stop it. It would have very likely happened under any president. And so this, this entire thing is just a really interesting microcosm of where Republican politics has gone today. While they can't seem to agree on what side that they're doing, whether they support an autocrat or whether they do not. And again, some of that has different interests, like, for example, oil interests, oil and gas. Our corporations, our oil companies are like, oh yeah, we could definitely have more, sell more oil and gas to Europe. That would be a great thing for us. And then, of course, you have defense contractors that want to sell more weapons, to that area as well, and to NATO partners. So they're eyeing this too. But again, you have the different factors here that are at play. And you also have just a weird seeming love for Vladimir Putin and his, strongman regime from certain Republicans like Donald Trump. Very, very strange stuff. And it's just all, unfolding in real time. It's fascinating to see. Okay. Moving on. Appears we have some justice today. The 3 former police officers who assisted Derek Chauvin in the murder of George Floyd were recently convicted by a federal jury for violating George Floyd's civil rights. Now, on Thursday, a federal jury found Tao Thao, J. Alexander Kwang, and Thomas Lane guilty of violating Floyd's civil rights. So now the verdict was reached just after 13 hours of deliberation. And I think this is a fantastic turn of events. Now, in addition to the guilty verdicts, the jury unanimously found their crimes had resulted in Floyd's death. So, of course, we know the situation where police were called to cup foods over an alleged counterfeit $20 bill. Now, think about it this way. I mean, this is amazing. This started over $20, a counterfeit 20, and ended with a dead man. They believed that that property was more important than someone else's life. Just think about how it kind of all boils down to that. Really, really terrible. But that's also why it's really good to see that these police officers, all of them involved, have actually been held accountable. So now, Chauvin was found guilty, of course, in a separate trial. And these officers in this trial had assisted him. Kwang and Lang helped hold Floyd down by his back and legs, respectively, and Thao kept a crowd of onlookers away who were basically trying to say, look, the guy, he's not looking good. He's dying. You need to help him. You need to help him. You need to get off of him and let him breathe. And this cop's like, no, everything's fine. We're fine. He might not be fine, but we're fine. We know what we're doing. And Derek Chauvin, he knows what he's doing. So we're going to defer to him. Now, afterwards, it was only after 5 minutes after they found that he had no pulse. No pulse. That's when they were rendering aid. You're supposed to do that immediately. If you notice that this person has no pulse and they are not breathing, you're not supposed to sit and take a smoke break. You're not supposed to wait around, be like, I don't know, should we help the guy? Yeah, maybe not, I don't know. Yeah, give it a couple more minutes. No, he needs help now. And that's what's going on here. They didn't help him. And that's why they got in trouble. Thao and Kang were charged with failing to intervene to halt Chauvin's unreasonable use of force as well, which was the knee in the back of the neck. Now, of course, Chauvin was a veteran of the force. He denied that request. He said, no, I've got it. Everything's fine. Well, again, it was not fine. And so, not intervening, not putting a stop to that, and not rendering aid, they all contributed to George Floyd's death, and that's why they have been found guilty. And once again, it's a good day for justice. Not only did Chauvin get convicted for killing George Floyd, these officers got in trouble for not helping Floyd. I don't think I've ever seen this before. I don't think I've ever seen police get held accountable for not allowing, or for allowing George Floyd to die and not intervening. They're supposed to. They should. They have a duty to render aid. But how often have we seen that they do not? I think it's great now that we're actually starting to hold police accountable for this. It's a very, very welcome verdict. Hopefully this will serve as a benchmark for these kind of cases going forward. A really important precedent and really, really important national case. And so it's a good day for justice. And so I'm happy to see this. Okay. Let's go to Biden's SCOTUS pick. Yeah, we're just kind of ripping through these stories today. It's Friday. You know how it is. Okay. President Joe Biden has made his pick for the Supreme Court. Earlier today, it was reported that Joe Biden has nominated Ketanji Brown Jackson for his pick to replace Stephen Breyer. So now he followed through, of course, on his promise to nominate a black woman for the Supreme Court. And when you look at her record, well, it's actually pretty good. It's really one of the better picks that we could hope for. And so now, for one, let me go through some details for her to kind of illustrate that. Now, for one, of course, she's very well known for basically being on the side of people who are facing disparate sentences. So now, she had actually worked for the U.S. Sentencing Commission, which is an independent federal agency aimed at addressing disparities in inconsistency for sentencing throughout the system. So she worked there. She made sure she did everything that that she could to try to ensure that people didn't get as disparate sentences. People who were black and white got similar sentences. So now she also then had left that work to spend a couple of years as a public defender. In fact, she defended people who couldn't afford that representation. She tried to help with more equal sentencing. As they mentioned, during the Obama administration, she also implemented or worked to implement amendments to the federal sentencing guidelines to reduce harsher sentences for drug crimes. So you see, just from some of those examples, her track record is pretty good. Much better than, again, other certain prospective picks, and I'll get to that. So now let me give you some more information. Now, she had also, of course, went against the Trump administration, not surprising. While in the D.C. Circuit Court, Judge Jackson ruled against a number of Trump and his allies' schemes to avoid subpoenas, and of course tried to prevent him from asserting executive privilege when it came to documents requested by the January 6th committee. There are other rulings, of course. One, that which she presided over, where Guam had sued the United States military over a landfill. So now, that opinion, she wrote, by the time the United States government had relinquished control over Guam to civilian authorities back in 1950, this landfill had contained significant quantities of trash, hazardous waste that posed a serious risk to the surrounding environment. Guam sued to cover the $160 million in costs to clean up this landfill. However, they had sued under a federal environmental law that contained two different clauses. So these provisions, one of which included only a 3-year statute of limitations, meaning that if one of these statutes of limitations, the 3-year, were applied, well then Guam's lawsuit wouldn't go anywhere. Okay? So now Jackson ruled that the 3-year limit did not apply, but was reversed by a unanimous D.C. Circuit Court panel. That decision was then reversed by the Supreme Court, ultimately reinstating her original decision, meaning that that Guam could go forward with its lawsuit to have the United States pay $160 million to clean up that landfill. That's good. Now, Jackson also ruled against the Trump administration's harsh immigration policies. However, unfortunately, that victory was a bit temporary. But these cases, when you look at it through it, they were pretty complicated. A lot of competing statutes, technocratic cases. not really the normal hot button issues that you see that are debated in the Supreme Court. So, but what I can see from her record is that she seems very qualified. I don't think that that's in question. As far as like being a super progressive judge, well, let's look at some more. Again, public defender status. She defended a detainee from Guantanamo. So that's something that Republicans are, of course, going to bring up to use against her. How dare you represent a terrorist? But don't we know that a lot of people who are in Guantanamo haven't even been accused of terrorism, or not convicted of terrorism. And there are some that are innocent that should have been let go. They didn't actually attack any Americans, but yet were tortured in Guantanamo Bay. And so, yes, if you're representing people like that, I have absolutely no problem with that. Again, as a public defender. Now, her record on other things seems to be pro-labor, or at least made some pro-labor decisions. That's good. Now, as far as how she compares with other people. Well, I was concerned that Biden was actually going to go in the direction of J. Michelle Childs. Now, J. Michelle Childs has a history of representing corporations in cases of racial discrimination and going against unions. She, in fact, helped crush unions. Not good. Not good at all. So now, in fact, Childs, according to David Borer, General Counsel of the American Federation of Government Employees, quote, she comes from an anti-union law firm where she spent time defending employers from claims of civil rights and labor law violations. That's not what we need. The American Prospects also reported that Childs had issued numerous harsh rulings against incarcerated people that were later overturned. In 2009, Childs sentenced a man to 12 years in prison for selling about a half a pound of marijuana. Judge Childs' repeated opposition to leniency in sentencing in alleged abuse cases brought by prisoners is notable in its own right, wrote the American Prospect's Alexander Salmon. That she made those decisions on such a dubious grounds that they're routinely overturned by higher courts indicates a commitment to tough on crime rulings beyond the letter of procedure. So you don't see really anything in Jackson's record like you do Childs. Childs, again, anti-union, pro-corporate, and of course, very, very tough on crime. Now, Jackson's record, let me give you some of her pro-labor rulings. On August 15, 2018, in AFGE-AFL-CIO versus Trump, Jackson invalidated provisions of 3 executive orders that would have limited the time federal employee labor unions could spend with union members, the issues that unions could bargain over in negotiations, and the rights of disciplined workers to appeal disciplinary actions. Okay, so again, that's pro-labor. Jackson's also, her first decision as a Court of Appeals judge, had invalidated a 2020 rule by the Federal Labor Relations Authority that had restricted the bargaining power of federal sector labor unions. Once again, pro-labor. So basically, and that's just a small overview of her career. Out of the choices we've had, I'm actually very surprised that Biden went in her direction. Seems pretty good. And look, I'm glad that she didn't go in the direction of, Jim Clyburn, who's notoriously incredibly pro-corporate, and Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham, of course, also supported J. Michelle Childs. Now he's trying to claim that, oh, no, I didn't. And that, she's too much of and I'm talking about Jackson here. Lindsey Graham thinks that she's too elitist. What? Are you kidding me? No, it's ridiculous. No, look, the reason that Clyburn and Lindsey Graham and Republicans really liked J. Michelle Childs is because she was tough on nonviolent drug offenders. She was lenient on corporations. And of course, we know that both Republicans and conservative Democrats really, really like those things. That said, Look, no matter what, no matter who was going to be nominated by Joe Biden, Republicans were, of course, going to fight against her. They're going to definitely push back on her. Now, the thing is, thankfully, you only need a simple majority, 51, which means, essentially, what you're going to have here is, and this is my prediction, I don't think that Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are going to get in the way of this one. I would be very, very surprised if they came out and became the villains on this. However, it could happen. It could happen. But I just don't think it's very likely. I think it is. I think Biden is going to get his pick. And as far as the picks are concerned, this is one of the better ones that I've seen. And so, hey, I'll take it as a W until I have reason not to. All right. Yeah, it's fairly simple. Yep. All right. Don't jinx it. I'm sorry. I don't want to jinx it. I really don't. But hey, I do think it's going to go well. I think it's going to go well. So, you know, hope so. Hope so. All right. Last one. Take the W. It is so hard for us to take a win. They already confirmed it before. Yeah, and actually the other thing that makes it, just to get back to this that I was reading, they already confirmed her before, as I said. So she's in line. She was actually going to be a pick before Merrick Garland. And so now understand too that she's not going to be like a super radical, but I think she's makes the right decisions in sort of the right place, especially when it comes to sentencing reform, criminal justice reform, things like that. That's what I mean, the best that we can expect. And I think those things are very, very important. So again, I'm in favor. This is a good choice. Okay. The government just admitted something that it's, well, probably going to want to keep quiet. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, it appears that according to the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, the corporate run health insurance system is a disaster. And that Medicare for All, they find, would actually solve a lot of the problems that are inherent in our corporate healthcare system. So in fact, the CBO put out a working paper, and I'm going to show you this, where they built on previous studies here that found that Medicare for All, once again, is a better choice for healthcare. So now these are 6 different points here that the CBO found. They analyzed 6 channels of which single payer would affect the economy. It found that the compositions of workers' labor compensation would change because of employers would no longer provide healthcare benefits and would pass along the savings to employees, increasing their wages. Great. They also found that households' health insurance premiums would be eliminated. Yes. The out-of-pocket costs would decline. Yes. Administrative expenses in the healthcare sector would also decline, again, making it cheaper to administer. It would free up productive resources for other sectors and ultimately increase economy-wide productivity. Longevity and labor productivity would also increase as people's health outcomes improved. So, of course it does. Of course. Yes, for workers, guess what? You could work less. Workers would choose to work fewer hours, they find, on average, despite higher wages because of the reduction in health insurance premiums and out-of-pocket expenses would generate a positive wealth effect that allowed households to spend their time on activities other than paid work and maintain the same standard of living. Imagine working less and getting the same amount. Not having to spend so much time at work. Like maybe with your family. Wow, that would be great. And now they also note that that wealth effect would boost households' disposable income, which they could then split between increased savings and non-health consumption. By up to, they estimate by 2030 about 3%. So now they also note, and of course we're going to see Republicans harp on this point, worked hours per capita will decline. Oh my God, I can't believe people are working less. But they find that the effect on GDP would be offset under most policy specifications by an increase in productivity, an increase in the size of the labor force, and an increase in the average worker's labor productivity, and a rise in capital stock. So weird, it turns out like healthy workers are better workers. Workers that can afford their medications, workers that can afford their health care, which includes preventative health care. Yes, very, very important. It turns out it's cheaper and better when you have preventative health care, when you can go to a doctor when you need it, and then you don't have these health problems. And yes, you're a much happier, healthier worker, and that's better for productivity. Who would have guessed? Who would have ever guessed? But it's true. It's true. Now there's more. For states, this would help the states as well. They could respond to the ensuing budget surplus by growing their rainy day funds, at least temporarily, they note, reducing state tax rates, increasing spending on government purchases of public services, or a combination of all three. Look, for a lot of you watching this, you already know all this. You know all this, and I'm not addressing this specifically to you. Anybody who comes across this video who might be a normal, everyday Democrat who's not involved in the political process, watches, MSNBC, CNN, things like that, well, this is for you. Because I know that those channels tend to be against Medicare for all, saying that, oh, the effects, we can't afford to do that universal health care, or, it will have bad effects because it will take away your insurance. Understand that there are industry talking points that go around to a lot of the people, a lot of the pundits on these cable news outlets. They are specifically there to push back against single-payer healthcare, specifically Bernie Sanders' single-payer healthcare plan, which is incredibly comprehensive. They want to push back on that because they work on behalf of pharmaceutical industry executives, as well as health insurance industry executives and their trade groups, their lobbyist groups that are pushing to make sure that we never have a single-payer healthcare system in this country because, well, it would mean that they have no business. It would put them out of business. They would not make any profits. And so that's the thing. That's what we have going on. And that's why it's very important for us to get out the message here. Because again, while a lot of us who watch independent news, we already know all this stuff, this is a surprise to other people who've heard nothing but nonstop propaganda against these healthcare options, against Medicare for all specifically. So again, massive boon for the people. I mean, think about it this way, right? How many people are working jobs just to have healthcare in this country? How many people? A lot, right? I mean, I've read a lot of stories, a lot of personal accounts where you have people that, take jobs and work jobs that they don't necessarily want or, don't really care for. But they do so, and by the way, they do it at lieu of starting their own businesses or just spending more time with their families, with their children. But the health insurance, I can't afford it. I got a pre-existing condition. I can't, I can't afford to do, my own business or do this. I can't afford the premiums otherwise. So I have to stay with my employer-sponsored healthcare because I just can't afford it otherwise. And look, this report noted that as healthcare costs rise, people have to work more and more and more at their jobs in order to be able to afford those premiums or those copays. Now then, imagine if that's gone and you have healthcare that is guaranteed, and you can not only avoid working all those extra hours, but also work less while having the same amount of money. Working less for the same standard of living, who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want that? I want that. I want to actually enjoy my life while I'm here instead of working 60 to 70 hours. Shouldn't that be the ideal for everyone? I'm not the rise and grind mentality. You only get one life, and I don't want to spend it constantly working. And nobody should. But hey, and by the way, if you want to, well, you can still do that under Medicare for All. This doesn't change that whatsoever. You can still work as much as you want, or you can cut your hours and actually enjoy your life. It'll be great. Now, the CBO study also found that under a single-payer system, households could retire at younger ages, and the hours worked would be lower for most households across the income distribution. Once again, all of these are good things. Under the 5 single-payer scenarios the agency evaluated, they found that a reduction in hours worked would be the largest among lower and middle-income households. So this isn't like rich people being able to work less. No, this is lower and middle income households. These groups would see the largest percent increase in wage rates and reductions of out-of-pocket expenses and premiums. Higher wages, no premiums, deductibles, less work, free prescription drugs. Hell yes. Yeah, let's go. Let's do this. Why wouldn't we? Why shouldn't we do this? Now, of course, the Republican conservative spin, and I also add in conservative Democrats who are more corporate Democrats. Well, they're gonna look at this as a bad thing. They're gonna try to spin this report as, oh no, you don't understand. We need more people to work more. We want you to work more. And think of the industry executives. Think of the jobs lost in the health insurance industry. We could put those resources into something else, into other things that actually benefit the economy, instead of having basically an entire industry there to scoop profits off the top, to act as a middleman. No, we got to get rid of it, because it's just nothing more than a way to skim money off of regular people and basically make it so that they can't even afford their drugs, or they can't even afford their, doctor visits. And they can't afford that, afford that preventative care that they need. But of course, they're going to spin that. But here's the thing. You can't really bury the news like this. When the CBO, which is conservative, by the way, it's run by a Republican right now. When they come out with this report, and they basically are admitting, oh, yeah, turns out this does all this incredibly positive stuff. Oh no, we're going to have to bury this. And that's what it is too. But you can't bury the facts. You can't bury the truth. And this is the truth. They're admitting that corporate healthcare is a problem. Corporate health insurance, big problem. It eats up so much of the average person's money, and all it does is line the pockets of the health insurance and hospital and pharma executives' pockets. Look, you don't have to be a liberal organization in order to accept facts. You can't argue with math. Single payer works. It gives you options. Any doctor, any hospital, anywhere in the United States. There is no in-network or out-of-network. No surprise bills. And yes, you might pay slightly more in taxes, but that's offset by not having premiums, copays, and deductibles. And it saves employers. By the way, it saves business money. If you care about small business, for example, well, there you go. Not only can you create a small business, but if you have a small business already and you want to provide healthcare, you don't have to anymore. That frees up money to be able to go and do other things that expand your business. Or you could, put it into wages or other benefits that are not healthcare. And of course, the other great thing is that you're not tied to your job for that health care. That's how every other country does it. They pay less, they get way more than what we do here in the United States. And so at the end of the day, we have to have Medicare for all. It is the only way to go forward. And you can bury the reports, you can bury the numbers as much as you want, but a fact's a fact. And the fact is, single payer, it is inevitable. All right. And there we go. Virginia Thomas, aka S Dragon, sends a super chat saying, a few years ago I asked my niece-in-law how they had four kids 4 years apart. She said it was always when my nephew was changing jobs. Okay. All right. Thank you for sending that super chat. I'm not even on Twitch. I should be. Should be monitoring my Twitch a little bit better. Let's see. Temperaday 918, thank you for resubbing for a month of tier 1. That was actually yesterday, but thank you anyway. Damn, Jeff, stop making good points. You're going to hurt their brains. I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can't help it. All right. So, but that would bring change. Conservatives hate change. Industry executives also hate change. So I hear you on that. Especially you change to their profit margins. All right. Well, there you go. Thank you to everybody. That's all I got. Thank you for watching. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Try to have a good weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday. Good night, everybody. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night.
There's some whores in this house.
I have not loved this conversation.
Please clap.
Obama.
Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.
Disappointed.